almost, and well, maybe, I don't know, this is a judgment call, maybe as important as grammatical correctness in writing is the principle of consistency. It's hugely important. So we are today talking about consistency in writing. All right, consistency is what part of speech? Max, you know what part of speech consistency is? No?
Style?
No, part of speech. Remember, there are 8 parts of speech. What part of speech is consistency? Cody?
No.
Is a noun. Very good. Does anybody know the adverb? Or no, let's go adjective form of consistency.
Consistently.
That's the adverb. Aisha?
Consistent.
That's right. Sarah, what does it mean? Always doing it the same. Good. Inconsistency, when you suddenly start doing something differently, is very noticeable. If you suddenly shift the way you're doing something in writing, like a voice shift, and we've talked about that before. So if suddenly you shift into the second person voice, there's an inconsistency there. And sometimes that can be bad. But let's just talk about consistency in general. Aisha has an example of inconsistency. Aisha, do you understand what the example of inconsistency is? You think? I'll tell you what, do some typing. And why don't you go over to the computer, because the wireless doesn't really reach that far, unfortunately. And type those 2 sentences, the one with love and no in them, right? Type them as you printed them, with all caps or underlining, however you did that. Some of you may see this in your writing, me admonishing you to be consistent in your writing. Maybe it has something to do with the way you wrote $300. Let's do something verbally while Aisha's typing. How could you write $300 on your page? Tony, give me a way that you could write $300 on your page. You could write it in numbers. And if you wrote it in numbers, what would you write right before the 3? The $sign. What's another way you could write 300? The words. Use the words. $300. Yes?
Can't you write the number 3, but write like the number, but write in letters $100?
Why would that violate consistency?
Because you went from a number to a...
You went from a numeral to a word. You went from a numeral to a number. Mansour's question is exactly the point. You wouldn't write the numeral 3 and then the word 100, because it's inconsistent. We don't go from one to the next. If you want to pick one over the other, pick it, but stay consistent with it. So if I use, and I saw some of you doing this, if I use the number sign and then 3 and 0, 0, so I do this, I do not expect to see this. Because it's inconsistent. Because you did this at first and then you do this second. If you establish a way that you're writing, continue to write in that fashion. I saw it $300 in this journal entry. Okay, so let's take a look at Aisha's. See, I love Greek mythology. I know I wouldn't have any money left over now, so I would just be happy with what I got out of my $300. Didn't you write a sentence with no?
Yeah.
Okay. And then later on, Aisha writes this. What's the rest of this sentence, Aisha? Okay.
So I would just be happy with what I got because I really don't want to know.
All right. Could somebody spot her inconsistency and why she did this, Mark? Okay. What stands out to you on the page, Kim? She used what? Oh, that's true. And that might be redundancy, but that's a different sort of principle. I'm looking for Kim. What pops out at you that looks strangely written? Love. Why is that strangely written? Very good. Why did she use all caps? Kim, how is this sound in your mind when you read this?
I love Greek mythology.
There you go. I love Greek mythology. Lizzie, she underlined no. Why? Mansoor?
Like, kind of, it's kind of like you make it so that it pops out oh.
Same thing, right? I love Greek mythology. I know I wouldn't have any money left over. In other words, she's using the underlining for emphasis. What you got, Kamar? There you go. So she shifted the way she's emphasizing the words. You're seeing it, Kamara. Aisha wants to add emphasis to her words. I've read novels like this, we all have, where usually in a novel, what would they do? They wouldn't all caps and they wouldn't underline. Yeah, they usually italicize. So if somebody says, I love Greek mythology, it would be L-O-V-E in italics. You decided you couldn't italicize your own writing, so you used all caps. And I looked at it at first and I thought, okay, I understand what she's doing. I'm not going to mark a MUGS error on that. And then I read down a few lines and I saw, oh, wait a minute. Now she shifted. At one point, she's using all caps as emphasis. At the next point, she's using underlining. I don't care which she used. That's not the point. She can underline. She could use all caps. I want her to be consistent. And I think Kamira's seeing it, that for no reason she shifted to a different way of adding emphasis. And then it just seems strange. And Aisha, you're a fantastic writer and a good thinker, but that comes off as a little bit flighty, like you're not quite sure where you're going with something. So make sure you're consistent with that. Yes, Mansoor.
Can it also be that inconsistent? Like, if you're talking about one topic, and then something relates to the topic, and then while you're talking about the thing that relates to it, you go on.
On what we might call a tangent? In other words, a sort of related but not really related topic?
Yeah, like if you're talking about like having a picnic and that your brother came over, and then you go and do a bunch of like brother.
Yeah. That's what we usually call drifting from the topic. And it's more of, well, Mansoor, what we usually do in Writer's Workshop is we look at the mechanics, the usage, kind of the nuts and bolts of writing. I'm not looking so much at the development of ideas, like the content of what you're writing. You're right that that's a content error, and it might be a little bit of inconsistency, but we usually call that drift. Drift means you're drifting away from the topic at hand. Okay? This one, inconsistency, is a little bit different because I'm talking about something specific like all caps and underlining, or using the dollar sign or using the word dollars. That's just very technical writing, typing kind of stuff. Maintain consistency, folks. In something like that, sometimes this works, they're both correct. The only mistake you could make is by mixing them. Aisha didn't make a mistake by underlining or using all caps. She made a mistake when she mixed them for no reason. All right. Good enough there. Continue to do your work on your